Here we go.
Okay, hey,
Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
Doing quite well. Doing quite
Oh,
well.
that's
Yeah.
good. Excellent.
Like I told you before, I'm a wee bit more relaxed than normal. So hopefully I don't fall asleep today.
Oh, that's a lot of relax. Not a little bit of that relax. That's a lot of relax.
Indeed. 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 As
Uh,
always, I'm super excited to talk about our topic. This time it's the article that you sent me on advice for retiring early. But I cut you off.
okay.
So what is it that you were going to say?
No, no, no. That's fine. That works.
Oh, okay. So how about this? I will read your bio, and then we'll just get right into discussing the article. Does that sound good?
Hmm.
Okay, here we go. So everyone, please help me welcome to our show my colleague and friend Crystal Mitchell. She is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, a co-host of the Business Zone. That's another weekly um, business online radio show. She's
Hmm.
an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a
Hmm.
certified network for teaching entrepreneur instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, how are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
Doing quite well. Doing quite well.
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
Thank you so much for sending me the article. Um, I'm not so sure those folks want me to talk about where that article came from, but um, it's fair to say that it did come from a business journal. So we're not just grabbing something out of, I don't even know what's out there now that's in print.
Well,
We get so much
well,
stuff in.
actually, because of where we are today,
Yes.
there's a lot of articles on all kinds of everything that could affect us as business people, as um, re- future retirees, retired people right now. There's just a lot of information out there, and I'm going to say at the end of what my suggestion is going to be at the end of the show, my words of wisdom for everything. But yeah, I've been doing all the rest of my shows on how we prepare.
Great. Great. I like that.
Hmm.
You always have good words of wisdom. Okay. So let's jump in. So the title of the article was about the best advice to give someone who's going to retire early. And that's
Hmm.
cool because I know a lot of your clients are doing what we call the second act, or you call it the third act, which means they've retired in many situations, and
Hmm.
um, have decided to go back into the workforce, but under a different mantle than they had when they left, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool. And it's actually one of the things that the gentleman in the article said that he had done for a little while. And then he and his wife did some traveling and gardening, I think, is one of the things he did. So I
Hmm.
just want to kind of just sort of break that out. I really did enjoy the article, and I have put my notes someplace, and they are not where I thought they were. So this could be a very interesting conversation. Here they are. Okay, so
Okay.
um, one of the things that impressed me about the article is that, well, number one, this gentleman in Australia gets a pension, and there's a lot of folks that wish they were in that position, and not too many of us have that. And we that's kind of that's an interesting thing to deal with because when Social Security was set up back there in FDR, as I
Hmm.
often say, people had the good sense to die at 67 after they retired at 65. And now that's not the case. Now people are living dramatically longer, and they're living in some situations quite well after 65. And
Hmm.
so having a pension is kind of a good thing. Creating your own pension, which is what I do, create a pension for people. That is, create a situation where they can turn that into a situation where they can get income once they
Hmm.
retire. Not as popular as the pension thing, but it is a necessity. So,
Right.
what do we do with that? And just kind of pulling this around full circle, I really like the first thing that I gathered from the article, and that was not having a mortgage. Um, I don't know if we talked about it, but recently, I occasionally do more than occasionally. I do meetings for groups of participants to talk to them about their plan, about their options, how to
Mhm.
invest, and we often get into uh, what that retirement should look like, and also how do I prepare for it. And
Mhm.
so, just as a rule of thumb, uh, we kind of we always point people towards the calculators, and so many companies have them. You can find them online, but if you have a 401k plan, there's a calculator there that will help you determine, based on today's numbers and what you give it. You have to give it
Mhm.
good stuff. It'll help you determine how to replace your income that you have in retirement, right? So
Right.
you yeah, if you generally live off of, let's say, $6,000 a month, uh, that would be, well, 6, 12, what is that? 60, 72,000 a year. So that would
Mhm.
be your income replacement, right? And, we take some things out of that. We say, okay, well, you don't have to do the dry cleaning if you have a white collar job, or maybe you don't have to do as much driving. And so at one time, we were suggesting here in this industry, we were suggesting that a person needed to replace their take home pay by about 80%. So you could say, okay, you know what? This is what my take home pay is, $72,000. My retirement income should be 80% of that. And I haven't done the math, but let's say that is $68,000. Okay.
Mhm.
So, how do you bring $68,000 into your uh, annual nest egg every year? How do you do that? How do you replace the paycheck you had with a new paycheck
Right.
that that is going to cover your needs? And that's what we really talk about. And the problem, I think we talked about this last week. The problem was the target keeps moving for various reasons. And one, and he nailed it right here, is no mortgage. So when we say 80%, we mean 80% without a mortgage. So you can imagine, if you don't have that mortgage, taking that bite out of your savings every month,
Mhm.
living on 80% of your income is not such a bad deal. So that's really important, and I'm so glad they brought that out in the article. Uh, the problem that we have now is that we found out that our senior citizens, our baby boomers, well, they're living longer. And they used to live longer, but not better. But now they're living longer and pretty good. And
Right.
so now, if you're 65, there's a good chance you could live to be 90 or 95. Or for clients that you have, for example, many of them are 65 starting a new business.
Yep.
Or
Starting a new business. I have met them. Some of them I've met personally. That are. I think I met a lady about months ago or earlier part of this month. She's 104, walking on her own 2 feet.
she's 104.
She's 104.
Wow. And she's starting a business?
No, she's not starting a business, but I'm just saying when you talk about them living longer.
Yep.
And then I saw something on social media. Older man, 106. He was dancing. Uh,
Ah, you
so
gotta like
so
that.
he was dancing up on a stage. In fact, not just dancing. So yes, people are living much longer, and so if you got longevity genes in the family, you really need to really contemplate what your retirement plans are, because you gonna
You
go
could be
way
living them.
over.
There you go. There you go. There you go. So, so along the way, we had to actually, in this industry, we had to actually take a look at that 80% and adjust it, because one of the things we found out was that old people, since I'm going to say, I don't have any data to back this up, but I'm going to say, because they're not dying at 67, because they are healthy, they are doing stuff.
They doing stuff,
Yeah, they're going out on their
dancing
motorcycles.
on stages.
They're dancing on stages. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And now we're thinking that you really need that take home pay that you get from your pension and your social security, everything that you have, every source of money that you have, that needs to generate on an annual basis
Mhm.
110% of your take home pay. So if you normally bring home $72,000, we're thinking that you need that income to generate 102% of that, right?
Yes.
So 72 plus another 2 or 12% of that, which is that's 110%, I guess. So another 10% on top of that. So it'd be like almost $80,000. Wow.
Right.
So what do you do? What do you do now? Right? You got to have $80,000 coming in the house so that you can do the things that you want to do because now you have more time to do them. And that's the only kind of thing that I was like, I didn't say like, I hope I didn't say like, I said like, oh dear. But that was the only kind of thing that I was disappointed with regard to that article is now that we are living up until into our 90s,
Yes.
we need to adjust the amount that we were saving. But I am so glad that he emphasized not having a mortgage, and I think that is huge. And unfortunately, some of our listeners live in cities where it's very expensive to buy a home, and so they're renting, and they're going to be renting for the rest of their lives. That kind of
Yeah.
takes a chunk out of your retirement.
It really does. And then can I add one other thing that sometimes happens? Um, so yeah, you've been planning for your retirement, and hopefully the Social Security will be there. But also, a lot of times that I've seen, and this happened to my brother-in-law. They were such. In some cases, some people are very dedicated employees, and they love their job, right? So,
Hmm.
which means they don't take their vacation times
Right.
uh, over sometimes many years. They accumulate those hours unless, of course, the job has some sort of limitation to how many, and then you're forced to do it. Also,
Sure.
sick time.
Hmm.
Sometimes they have loads and loads of sick time. So when they actually leave their job, so when they're closing out on their occupation, their job, now they're going to get a lump sum check. In some cases, of course, it's going to be massively taxed. So one, they need to think about that part,
Yeah.
and how that affects that, and have a plan for that, right? Down the line.
Yes.
Um, I know when I was doing payroll for large corporations, I was kind of and it wasn't a governmental or anything of that nature. It was a private entity, so you had lot more flexibility, latitude, and so I would not process their salary checks, their final salary checks with their vacation and sick time check. I would separate all three of them.
Mm.
And then they would possibly not take all of it. But again, on the backside of it, I always tell them you need to have a conversation with your tax person to see what your liability is going to be, your tax liability, so that you guys could all make the adjustment. And so I would do some things like that. But sometimes they get it in as a big chunk, and half of it goes to the IRS. But that's money that they really should stop. They should have a plan, and the plan should be with a financial advisor, so that
Yeah.
they can make sure
Yes.
that every month they know exactly, like you said, have them fill out that questionnaire, have them
Hmm.
do a personal income, um, what we call a personal income statement or P&L for home, and
Right.
then that way they can see and look at it over the whole entire year or the last 2 years, so they can see what other expenses may pop up that they don't think about, so that they
Hmm.
can make sure that they are allocating the right amount of money that they need uh, for um, for retirement. And then the other part, sometimes they sell a home, and there's a large chunk of the capital gains, right?
Right.
From the sale of their home, they may go buy another home, or they may rent. But know that in two couple years you got a capital gains issue, so you need
Yes.
to discuss that with your person. And then most importantly, uh, other family members, because when they hear that you're getting a large sum of money, you're excited. they start helping you plan to spend it, like remodeling, finishing up the remodeling on their house, right? And
Right.
you still got another 20, 30 years to live, and this is all of it, right? So just be mindful and understand. You got to put the oxygen mask on you first, and we're not
Right.
talking for short term. We're talking long term, and
Yes.
those are some of the things that pop up um, that could derail everything. Because if you get sick, that money that you use for mama or sister's a remodel should be there for you in the event that you need a caregiver and all those sort of things if those things have not been planned. So just wanted to add
Right.
that
Yeah, I could not agree with you more fully, especially about relatives that come out of seemingly nowhere now that you have money, or or maybe even just the needs of those relatives come out of nowhere now that you have money. And for so many folks, it's not that much money. It's
in.
enough money
No,
perhaps to help them get started, but it's not like when you think about, oh, this has to last me for the next 30 years. It's not that much money for
yeah,
many
I
people.
haven't. Right, I have a million, not even that much money for a regular person living, say, in California. Right,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you're not even at upper middle class. You might be right smack dab, or might this itch maybe this much into middle class in California.
There
But
you go.
if you start spending and handing out because you got this large sum and paying off kids' tuition, college loans and stuff, and no, pay off your car loan, get rid of the mortgage, and now breathe and know
Yes.
that you didn't planned out whatever that money is,
Yeah.
including your retirement and your Social Security, so that you know exactly what you're dealing with for the
Yes.
next 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
possibly.
If I know correctly, and I may not, but when I know, if I believe that when FDR set up Social Security, it was only supposed to take care of about 40% of your needs in retirement. And unfortunately, folks have gotten to the point where they don't save and they depend upon that. Uh, and they depend upon that for their whole lives. But um, within that system of getting Social Security to apply to you as an individual is the understanding that it's only 40% of your income. So,
Yeah.
we have to think about, all right, where's the rest of that coming from? Well, it's coming from your pension or your 401k type or your other investments. And I'm really glad this gentleman went into the fact that he had some other investments and he had the pension and he got rid of the mortgage. And that's huge. That's huge.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the mindset that he had, because I think that's really important as well. Right.
Yes.
So, not only did he decide that uh, he needed to be healthy by exercising and getting himself a part time job, but he actually was probably busier once he retired than he was when he was actually working. But he's gardening, he's exercising. At one point, he's going to the gym 3 days a week and uh, taking trips and golfing and spending time with the wife and gardening, and he was moving around.
He was.
He was really going to it, and that's great if you're an old person that can do that, because so many times uh, just kicking back is a good way not to be around for very long. Their bodies.
Exactly. And he happened to live in a in Australia, so I know, like, Canada and Great Britain, I think number of actually we're the only country I think that doesn't have this. They actually have free health care, which is it's paid for, not really free. It is paid
Mhm.
for via their taxes. They pay an increase in their taxes in
Right.
order to be provided with Medicare, with medical insurance. So it's
Yeah.
not unlike here in Los Angeles. I mean, in California or in the United States, period. We don't have that luxury,
Right.
because
Right.
even for your Medicare, you pay for it, and depending on what your income levels are, then the cost of that is also predicated on, if you happen to be a millionaire, billionaire kind of person, then you're going to pay accordingly for your health insurance. And then, though, it's on a scale. based upon your income, yeah, and the taxes that's coming off of those incomes. So, but they are not entitlements for here. They're actually money that you have worked for, and I
Yes.
like to call it your own little special, so your own little special pension plan, personal pension plan,
Personal
for
opinion.
your right for the
Yeah.
future. It is not an entitlement, and it
Right.
is your money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point that a lot of people don't understand, and I think people don't, well, these times are actually giving us a really good view of
Hmm.
who our fellow citizens are and how they feel. And I don't want to get into politics here, but I think we are seeing symptoms that belie some serious problems, but we're seeing symptoms pop up, and those symptoms are telling us something about the folks that we have here, but it's not telling us who we really are as Americans, I think. I hope it's not telling us who we really are as Americans, but it is telling us some symptoms about what's not right, and we're acting from those energies upon us. We are getting upset, and we are having, this is sounding kind of wishy-washy because I don't want to say how I really feel. but I but I think we are getting a look at the American population, the American society, and it's a little bit different than we thought it was, right? And I think things are happening now that are symptoms of those problems.
I quite agree with you. I also see and that maybe those of us that are in the industries, and I recognized this a long time ago because I am in the financial industry, that we make an assumption that the average American at least know the basics, right? So the basics would be one, Social Security and Medicare is not an entitlement. That's a basic, right? You see it taken out of your check. I don't know how many young people, when that first check they get, going, what is this FICA stuff? What is this FUTA stuff? Why are they taking my money? And because I worked in payroll, I've had adults come up to me and ask me, but definitely the young people who were getting their very first check. I don't understand why they're getting so much money. Who is this and why? Just get rid of it. No, you can't. It is a mandatory. It's mandatory. There are other things you can probably do, but you can't get rid of those two. So we're making assumptions based upon our knowledge, our ability to research,
Right.
and the information that we've acquired and that we get all the time because of the nature of the industry we're in, right? We're getting always updates and trends on what it looks like in the now and at least 10 years into the future, right? But what we don't recognize is that there are a lot of people that are just average people that go to work. They're making their hourly wages somewhere, and they're barely making ends meet, but they truly don't understand uh, the the makings and the workings of financials and money and how you spend it and inflation and supply and demand. They may have been paying attention in school, and you only got it on the basic side, but a lot of them that didn't carry over past, whenever they started working, especially if they didn't go to college. And so I think that's also what we're seeing. Just people are, there are many people that are definitely financially illiterate. There is no question about that. And that's because you were not taught that by anyone. And generally, whatever your parents' spending characteristics are, is usually passed down to the child. So if the parent didn't know, then that's what happens, right? And depending on the time, the era you were born in, it might have looked really fluid because a lot of kids during the 70s and 80s, 90s felt that their parents had a debit card, especially in the 90s. They had a debit card, so there had to be money on the other side of it always.
No
And
matter
then
what happens on that
no
one.
matter what happens, always there's money. Just go out there. You got a card? What's the matter, mommy? Why can't I have that? Right. And then the other thing I think to that is we didn't. I don't know about your family, but my family did because we were my parents divorced when I was in my teens. So parents don't generally have a conversation with their children on what their money situations are. They just make it happen, or they say we don't have it and that's the end of it, but not explaining to them what is our rent every month, what is our food bill every month, what is our whatever, and sitting down and maybe having budgetary meetings with your children so that they understand that. And so I think um, that's a core part of it, Javon. And then there's this those that live in a magical world.
Where things are taken care of, to be for
Things are
real.
taken care of. And if you're wealthy, your children think things are taken care of because things are taken care of.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting when I hear people that have fairly good means say phrases like, "There might be a small disruption, but we'll get through it." With regard to prices going up or jobs being lost, things like, "Oh, all right, so you'll have to change jobs, perhaps, but you're
Mhm.
an able-bodied person, and you'll be able to find a new job, right? So
Mhm.
that's okay." That's easy to say when it's not you, and it's easy to say when you have enough savings so that you can withstand a month or two or three without work, right? your
Mhm.
your kid's baseball game is taken care of, your kid's hockey game is taken care of, the Girl Scouts are taken care of, the all those things are taken care of. But so many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, right? I mean, it's sad, and we know it's sad, and we don't want to live that way, but situations being as they are, that's where we are. We're living
Mhm.
paycheck to paycheck. And if we weren't
Mhm.
living paycheck to paycheck, we would start living paycheck for paycheck because we want more stuff for
Right.
some reason, or we're not at that place we want to be. And so it really ruffles my feathers, I'll put it that way, when I hear someone say there'll be a small disruption, but you'll be fine, or you'll be able to get another situation. Because even when jobs were quote unquote plentiful, I can remember looking at the numbers saying, we had this many jobs created and this many jobs created. I don't know anybody that just got up, walked out their door, walked into a building and said, "I want to have a job that pays me 125, $30,000 a year uh, right now," and got it.
Right.
You still had to go through a process. And as you and I know, being in sales, you still had to go through some rejection. And that can be tough, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because again, there was a time um, when you could quit a job. And this was when I first got out of college, and so that would have been late '70s, early '80s, throughout the '80s. You could quit a job. I remember as 20-year-old, you quit a job on Friday, take a few days off, and have another job the following week, right? If you had some skill sets, right? But that ain't today. In fact, that ain't been the last decade or 2 decades actually. Now it is tough to get a job because of even how people do it. You got to submit resumes, and you can get 50 resumes for one position, and your resume somehow or another has to jump out of the stack and do a song and dance so that they get their attention. So, yeah, it don't happen like
Very true. And I would say, though, that the unemployment rate for high school graduates is dramatically lower than the unemployment rate for college graduates, which is dramatically lower than the unemployment rate for people who have a master's degree. So education is important. It doesn't always make you smarter. And for most people, it doesn't make them smarter, but it does give you contacts, and it does give you the language to speak. And so I think education is great. And I also think that relying upon education or pushing education in the way that we do, in the snobbish way that we push education, is a huge detriment. Everybody
that.
wasn't
Mhm.
meant to go and sit at a desk or behind a computer and work or plunk keys and send emails. Not everybody's designed to do that. And if you're not, then you still deserve to have a well-paying job, right? I mean, you deserve to be able to feed your family and do all kinds of things, and you deserve to get superior skills in whatever it is that you do, because we
Mhm.
need all those kinds of people. So I think there's a tendency amongst many of the folks that we vote for. I'll just come right out and say it. Many of the folks that we vote for, they think that having a college degree is all that in a bag of chips. Well, not everybody is that way, right? Not everybody flows that way. Some of us flow different ways, and if we do, we deserve a living wage. We deserve to make money. We deserve to have a decent salary. So, you know, there is nothing wrong with doing a job with your hands, or your feet, or whatever part of your body you want to do that with.
We lost your image. We see your voice, but we don't see your face. I don't know what
Oh,
happened,
wow. Yeah.
but that does happen. You are absolutely. There you go.
Yep.
You're absolutely correct, and I think also, and we're not talking politics, but I do know that what politicians today are different than politicians, in our day, in our age. I don't know if when I was growing up, um, you know, that politicians were as wealthy. Oh, lost you. As I'll keep this going, as wealthy as they are today, which really makes them a little out of touch with the average man and woman, because a lot of them have come from very successful businesses or family money, and discovered that they had, they wanted to uh, serve their country or serve their government, and but that doesn't necessarily mean that they understand you as their constituent. They don't understand how you live because they don't live like that, right? Um, so
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. Pardon
right,
that interruption.
yeah,
And
no
we saw
problem.
that. We saw
That's
that.
what we're. That's really what we're seeing right today,
Yeah.
right?
You know, I think, you know, everyone, and this is something that I didn't want to talk about this, but since we're here, I think we have this presumption that things are going to happen to the other person. And while
Mhm.
that's a tough situation, you know, it's tough, but, and I'm sorry for you, but you got to go through it. And then when things happen to us, this is really horrible. It's like that old joke: the difference between a recession and a depression. Do you know what that is? So,
Uh,
or a downturn, a difference between a downturn in the economy and a depression. Do you know what that is?
Well, I know what a depression is, but I guess a downturn is, it should be, if it's just a downturn, it might should be just like, oh, okay, whew, we got to be a little tight this month, but
Well,
but we're gonna be all right, in 2 months from now. But
yeah.
depression is, oh my God, it's gonna be, when do we come out of this torture?
Well, one definition of that is that a downturn in the economy is when your neighbor loses his job, and that's
Ah,
right.
not you.
Depression in the economy is when you lose your job. That's a depression, and I think we
Yeah,
are starting to see that in a lot of ways. In fact, I can
yeah,
remember talking to people saying, "Who cares what the politicians do? It's not affecting me. It's not affecting my
right.
little driveway, my little circle." Well, as we know by that preacher minister, um, guy Niemöller, who wrote that poem, uh,
Mhm.
you know, the end of the line was, "By the time they came for me, no one was left." And I
Right.
think we as
Exactly.
Americans are starting to forget that, because it is happening to us.
It is
It's no
happening
longer
to
that guy
every,
over there.
right.
It's happening to all of us. And it's been happening to all of us for a long time. And now I'm starting to preach. So now I should get rid of I should get off of this show.
But no, but I think for the people that are listening, that is absolutely correct. There's some other quotes out there, um, very similar to that, about not caring about your brother, because not caring about your brother's suffering, because one day you may have the same suffering as well, and that's what we're seeing. And unfortunately, the people that are making decisions on our behalf, and we've allowed them to make the decisions on our behalf, right? Because we thought
Yeah.
they were the experts, and but they're not in the same um, class as you, actually,
The same.
and class. They're
Oh,
not in the same class status as you. So what is a hardship for you, for them? They have no clue what a hardship. They don't even know what the cost of bread is. You know, everybody was screaming eggs were so expensive. Well, they're not buying eggs. They're not personally going to the supermarket and buying eggs,
right.
right? They have a staff that is given an allocation of dollars to make that happen.
Mm.
Or they're using cards or whatever, or ordering, and then at the end of the month they go, "Oh yeah, okay." But they got the resources to make it happen. So yes, that's what's happening today. So we, as people, and we, if you're not a one percenter, and that's pretty much most of the country, that you have to look at things differently. You have to really, really look at your budget, and also be empathetic that there are other people also feeling the same pain you're feeling.
I think you're right. It's so easy when we are in pain to separate ourselves into them versus us. And the and that's just a very sad thing, and I think that's what we're going through. And I think many of us as Americans have been going through a huge amount of pain for quite some time. Some people might
Mhm.
say that it was before COVID even, but I
Mhm.
know that it's been ratcheting up, and that's why I say that many of the things that are happening to our country now are symptoms of a bigger thing. And I think
Mhm.
that one of those big things could be pain,
Mhm.
the trouble that we're having making ends meet, the trouble that we're having with crime, the troubles that we're having with just the cost of living day to day, you know,
Mhm.
and having this idea that those troubles weren't there in the past, when in
Mhm.
actuality, they were there. We just didn't really pay attention to them.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the way it
I
is.
always say, if when you work, if you have quite a bit of money and you never really have to worry about it, you got money coming in continuously and regularly, you don't even look at the bottom line, right? It's when it starts to shorten, or you don't get a paycheck, or you lose your job, or what have you. Then all of a sudden, it is you have an at home constitutional crisis in your own house and your bank account.
Yes.
When you have more month at the end of the month than you got paid, then we
Yeah.
got a crisis in our house,
This is
and
a crisis.
it's at epidemic levels.
Well said, my friend. Well said. So, just to review, because I can talk about this for a long time, but just to
Right.
review, I think one of the opponents of this wonderful article that you sent me, so thank you so much for that. One of the big keys is not having a mortgage. And I know I keep harping on that. And I know that I have friends who say, you know what, Javon, I just don't want to deal with that stuff that you have to deal with when you have a house. Not everybody can get a house. So you
Yeah.
really need to watch what you're saying when you talk about not having a mortgage. I get that. I just want to say that if we're looking at how much do you need for retirement, we're looking at 110% of your take home pay without a mortgage. So if you
Right.
have a mortgage, if you really want to keep that in the family, and I know there's a strong desire to do that because real estate is a great way to give people a leg up or give people a good
Mhm.
start. I understand that pull, but if you really want to do that, then um, you've got to make some changes. You really need to figure some things out. And there are lots of financial advisors around that will help you do that. And I just want to end it with saying that, hey, your nut for most of us as Americans is your savings need to generate 110% of your take home pay if you don't have a mortgage. And now you can go back and forth and figure out what you need to do. And that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to tell somebody who's 47 how much they're going to need for retirement and do the reverse math to figure out how much they need to be saving. Because bet your bottom dollar, things in your life are going to change from the age of 47 to 50. and you need
Right.
to reevaluate. You
Right.
constantly need to reevaluate. The market's going to change. You're going to have more money. You're going to have less money. You're going to get more expenses. You're going to get a more expensive life, perhaps, or
Right.
less expensive. So we have to start with 110% and then add things on, and
Right.
that's tough to do. And I love the rest of the article where this gentleman got a part-time job when he'd retired. He gardened, he exercised, he took care of himself. He did all those things that you're supposed to do to stay healthy and well so that you can keep your mentality and emotions in check and so that you can
Mhm.
have a good life. I mean, even if you
Mhm.
have tons of money, but you have this hatred in your heart or this thing in your mind that really allows your emotions to govern your life,
Mhm.
you're not rich. And then you're going to spend all your money and then you're going to have an issue even if you had plenty of money. So
Right.
there it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And we just and today, and so we're coming close around to the end. My final is that we need to be much more pay much more attention to detail, and we need to not make assumptions that all the systems that we utilize are operating in their optimum, right? That means that everyone should, if you're getting close to retirement and you are actually in retirement, you really should be going to ssa.gov, and you need to be checking to make sure that everything is okay, especially in light of what's been happening, and also with your Medicare. Go on to those portals to see what's happening because there's some major changes that's taking place. Do your research. They've pulled a lot of stuff off the web, off certain website portals, but you can do your research. Use your chat GPT. Use everything, Google everything you got out there right now to get information. Reach out to AARP because that is the governing, kind of our governing body as seniors, and it happens as soon as you turn 55. AARP are on it. So if any good changes are going on, and everybody pretty much gets the magazine, and you can go to their website and make sure you're reading on all the current articles because they are up to date, letting you their population know exactly what's going on today.
Wow. I did not know that. That's
You didn't
great
know that?
information. I didn't know that.
Oh
I
yeah,
never
our
even thought of
AARP is on top of it. They send out I get a magazine, and I get, you can sign up for a magazine or the little newsletter, or it's another little paper magazine. One's shiny and one's not. And it tells you everything. The people
it.
being
Okay.
the seniors that are being scammed, the scams that are out there. Makes
Wow.
you're very much aware of what those scams are. Because heck, your money's already coming hard. You don't need nobody to come take it. They also talk about doctor care. They talk about retirement. They talk about what else they talk about? They talk about security. They talk about travel. Everything that we talk about that potentially could be happening to a senior, they cover it every single month. And you can go to their website and there's articles there as well.
Good for the well, good. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Well, on that
Yeah.
note, I think we should
Okay.
bring this to a conclusion. Thank you for the article, and let's take a look at AARP. I'm in. Let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good platform to be on.
Well, that's going to be the end of our show. We will see you all back here next week, and until then, have a great week. And as some folks say, take care of somebody else.
Actually, yes, I like that idea. Bye, everyone.